G'day everyone, it's Warren from NQ Explorers. Today I'm just doing a short demonstration video on the Garrett ATX pulse induction metal detector on its reaction to small gold nuggets in highly mineralised Australian ironstone soil. As Aussie prospectors, the big question is, what advantage does the ATX bring to prospecting in Australia above current PIs that you might be swinging in the goldfields? And the answer to that question is this: that the ATX is very sensitive to fine gold at sub-grammars right down to the 0.1 grammars in hot ground with a double D coil. Okay, with a double D coil, not a mono. You guys are swinging monos. We all swing monos because we know they're more sensitive and they're going to pick up the small bits. But as you know, you get into a bit of hot ground or you get a lot of variation in your ground, your mono will start losing its threshold, you'll get variable tones, you're going to start, you're all over the place with your mono once you get into hot ground. At that point you think, well, we'll go to a double D. The penalty there, of course, is that you lose your sensitivity that you had with the mono once you go to your double D. Not with the ATX. You can detect red hot ground, stable threshold, tiny gold, and it's a double D coil. So the advantages of the mono are there. So you've got fine gold sensitivity, and the advantage of the double D in that you can detect hot and variable ground on a stable threshold so that you can concentrate on that threshold tone and pick up those tiny signals. So what I'm going to do now is demonstrate this in a sample bed of Australian ironstone gravel. This material ground balance is around 88 on an AT gold. It's highly mineralised, highly magnetic. It's just ancient, many millions of years old Australian ironstone that has just been worn down to its elemental iron. Basically it's just iron. Now the other thing about the ATX, it's not an upgraded Infinium, it's not a rebadged Recon Pro, it's all new pulse technology with this red hot double D coil that gives you a real advantage in the Australian goldfields, hot ground, on fine gold. So let's have a look at a little bit of a demo now on a tiny little 0.16 gram nugget in ironstone soil. Okay, well here's my test bed of Australian ironstone gravel. Typical of what you find in our goldfields, particularly WA. Red hot ground. It balances at about 88 on an AT gold. Highly magnetised, highly mineralised. A real tough ask for any metal detector. Beyond the point where a VLF gives you an advantage and you need to go to a PI. Just by way of demonstration, this material, here's the Garrett Pro Pointer. The Pro Pointer circle is on the ground. Of course I can retune the Pro Pointer and it's still usable in this ground, but that's the kind of mineralisation we're talking about. This is a rare earth magnet here that a lot of you blokes will have on your prospecting pics. There you go. The highly magnetised, picks up the ground. Done it with a big ball of red dirt in a minute. Okay. But with these, okay, we're going to do a little test with the nugget. But right from the start we need to acknowledge a few things. Yes, we can't replicate true ground conditions in a test bed. The gold's been in the ground for millions and millions of years. All sorts of variables such as the soil moisture content, soil air voids, variation in mineralisation, hot rocks, cold rocks, your personal coil swing technique all come into play as to whether you hear a target or not. But that acknowledged, we'll just go through this process and demonstrate how this red hot ground here has no problem to the ATX with the double D coil. It'll just smoothly cruise across this stuff and it will pick out that tiny little sub-grammer out of this red hot soil on a double D coil. Okay, well here's that tiny little gold nugget, 0.16 of a gram. We detected this with the AT gold in a slate bedrock scenario several months back. Very small, low conductive target to a metal detector. And of course with the ATX in this hot ground, if you're going to pick up little targets like that, you won't have any trouble with the big ones down deep. But anyway, I'll just demonstrate the target response and the target ID of this little piece of gold initially on the AT gold before we move to the ATX. Here we go. Okay, good solid target response as you'd expect from a high-end VLF, and it was a target ID of around 38, fairly constant 38, 39. Well, there she is. That's a clear diggable signal, and that's on the external speaker. If you had headphones on, you're not going to miss that in this red hot soil 0.16 gram nugget. Quite a strong target response with such a tiny piece of gold, such low conductivity to a pulse machine. You can actually hear it crossing the coil windings there. So what I'll do now is just put him in the ground a bit. Let's see if we can hear it in the ground. I'll just tip that little tiddler over, put it in the ground there, to simulate it being buried. Here it is there. We'll just move these rocks out of the way and see if we can hear that one. Lovely, repeatable, strong signal, 0.16 gram gold nugget, 2 inches from the coil in red hot ironstone, Aussie ironstone. As I said, if you had headphones on, you're going to dig a signal like that. That's the kind of capability that this ATX has on tiny gold in hot ground. Well, let's have a little summary of what we just saw there. Garrett ATX PI. It is a single setting of operation with 2 modes, motion and non-motion. You're not fiddling with switches and settings and all sorts of complex permutations that have you wondering if you've got this machine set for the right conditions and for the targets you're chasing. This machine, you'll get top performance at all times in all ground conditions, and that double D coil gives you all that advantage because you can now go into those heavily mineralised areas without the problems that a mono-loop coil will cause and still get the fine gold. So what that means is that old patch you're working in the hot ground, you've picked up some nice gold out of there with your double D. You know there's more little pieces in there, but the mono's driving you mad. This is where the ATX comes in. It'll come in and clean that patch up for you in that red hot ground. Well, thanks for watching, everyone. We'll have more ATX goldfield videos coming up soon, and we hope you stay tuned for those. So happy hunting to you all.